This incident is about the phone harassment in which Officer Joseph Chavez's brother, Michael Chavez, took the fall for it. He was charged by the State Police of New Mexico in a magistrate court in Belen, New Mexico. Sounds all fine and dandy till you hear the story. October 2012, we buried my father-in-law. The next day I began getting phone calls from a private number. First couple, three, I pretty much ignored and just thought it was just a bad number someone called. Well, when I hung up the third time and I get the fourth call, I hit ignore. And I got another one, ignore, another one, ignore. 12, 13, 14 times. For the next 5 days, the same thing. I went to 2 a day. On the 5th day, I finally answered the phone and see if this person would talk to me, and it was a male. And said some stuff, and one thing he said that I couldn't find out who he was because it was a private phone number. Well, that's fine, because I went home and I set myself up an 800 number, knowing that by federal law 800 numbers have to generate a phone number that's being called to it. With this number, it also sent me an email with that number. The following day I went to the municipal court as a witness for a case, and in there was Joseph Chavez. At the end of the court session, I came home. A few minutes later I start getting some of these prank phone calls from this private number. I let it go to the voicemail. A few minutes later I get a voice or email from the voicemail with this phone number. I look it up in the internet. It's registered in Gallup, New Mexico. I call the Gallup Police Department. They tell me to go to the local police department and file a complaint. Before I went, I called that number and said to that number, or the person, and left a message that he thought it was funny that I couldn't find out who it was, and he thought it was a game, and I don't play games. And I found out who your number is. I'm going to the police. I went and showed up at the police department, and that's when Chief Dan Robb at the Belen Police Department, when I walked in, stated to me that he has something to talk to me about. So we sat down, I showed him the information, he went over to a computer, looked up the number, came back and said that it's interesting that I had that number, that he said that one of his officers said that I had called their number and left a message, but I didn't leave a name or anything, and that officer had called me back. Well, that's pretty funny, because the fact that the only phone number I called that day, or up until this time, was the phone number that was phone pranking me that I got off the voicemail. So when I said that to the chief, we were both stunned. I went home, I said something to my wife, she went livid, due to the fact that I've had enough playing games with these cops around here, and this harassment by these cops, that I had enough of it. So is my wife. So my wife emails both the chief, the city, the mayor, the manager, Mary Lucy Baca, that's very instrumental in all the stuff that the city's involved in with me. including the letter about me not being welcomed into any public building in this city without risk of being arrested. Civil rights violation there. So, in this request, we asked for a complete investigation, and in there I also asked for subpoenaed records of both my phone and Chavez's phone. Officer Joseph Chavez's phone. Chief Rob tells me that if I want a third-party investigation, I need to go and get, they'll do an internal investigation, but to get a third party to go to the city or the state, or county or state. Decided to go to the state. Went to the state police. They told me that they refused to do an investigation. Chief Rob was told the same thing. I called Chief Schilling of the state police as I was on my way to the FBI office to give them all the evidence that I have. Told them it was wrong for the state police to refuse an investigation, which was refused by the first lieutenant that I spoke with here in Valencia County. He's no longer, I don't know where he's at. He was transferred somewhere else. Actually, I think he was transferred in the southwest section down there, in the same area that the cops down there, the state cops, took the guy to the medical facility and stuck cameras up his butt, illegally, violating his civil rights. So anyhow, Chief Schilling sent an officer, Robert Carrejo, over the following week. Got the information from him. He's going to do an investigation. 4 months later, an incident happens out here in my front driveway, January 29th. 2 weeks later, I go to the Belen Police Department to get an incident report, and I asked the chief whatever happened with the phone harassment thing. He said that he understood that the case was closed. Okay? So I called the state police and found out that the case was closed, that there was no wrongdoing. I had a problem with that. I called Internal Affairs. I left a message on their voicemail the first time. I get a call back from a lieutenant saying, in Valencia County, saying that they were reopening the case. Okay. After we talked, he went to some meeting in Phoenix and came back. He was transferred. They had a new acting lieutenant for Valencia County. Talked to him a couple of times. Told him I wasn't too happy about the whole thing about the case being closed and no wrongdoing, when there was simply a fact of there was a lot of wrongdoing. Then the next thing I understand that the case was closed, and trying to get a hold of the officer investigating, he never responded to me at all. I went up to the state police office in Albuquerque, gave them some additional information, which sat on their shelf for a month until I went back there and got it from them prior to the first court date for Michael Chavez. The second time around, the first time the case was reopened, the officer got Michael Chavez to take blame for it, or he said that he actually made those phone calls on his vacation time using Officer Joseph Chavez's cell phone. Right there I have a couple of problems. Number one is, why is my phone number on Officer Joseph Chavez's phone when there's no reason it should be? I don't call him and he doesn't call me. I have no reason to talk to him. I don't trust the guy. Over the couple of years of incidents with him and his police reports that has me escalated throughout as they go along as the problem child here, when all I'm doing is standing up for my rights, being harassed by the cops, being harassed by this next door neighbor over here. So I have a pattern there to prove and show. The writings of Joseph Chavez in those police reports are grossly false, and they escalate to a point of it's completely one-sided. It has nothing with my information or my side of things on any story, and everything is directed towards me as being the problem when I'm the one that called 911. So I find out that there is a court date, that there was no subpoenaed phone records. I found this out from talking with Major Weaver in Internal Affairs with the state of New Mexico. This is my second call to Internal Affairs, the first being answered by a voicemail. The second time I actually spoke to Officer Major Weaver. He understood my point. He also reopened the case. He came back and called me and told me that the case was reopened a second time. The officer investigating, Robert Carrejo, was going to contact Michael Chavez again, and Michael Chavez decided to dummy up. So there was no further investigation. The subpoenaed phone records were never done by either party. And then I found out that the court date was set, and Michael Chavez did not have an attorney, and the prosecuting attorney is the state cop. He did not subpoena me to court. I so happened to find out when the court date was by looking it up on the internet. So I went to the first hearing, or whatever it's called, in which the court started and began. I showed up despite Officer Robert Carrejo not subpoenaing me as a victim in this case. The DA never got involved after I questioned him and asked him a number of times, even going to Lemuel Martinez's office up in Bernalillo. What a joke. Allowing cops to prosecute cases, especially against a cop or a family of a cop, in a magistrate court that's a magistrate judge. It used to be a Belen cop as well. Give me a break, people. I wasn't born yesterday. So, court starts. Michael Chavez is standing there by himself. I'm standing there with this so-called prosecuting attorney, state cop, Robert Carrejo. Joshua, what's his name, the senator's son, that's an attorney, decides that he wants to get involved, stands up and stops the court proceeding. Talk to Michael Chavez, and he wants to change the court date, have a new court date, because he just got involved. My prosecuting attorney, that cop, didn't do a damn thing. So the magistrate judge granted it to him. Set another court date for September, I believe. In the meantime, I'm filing for this judge to recuse himself. Since he's recused himself of the previous cases that I've been involved in, due to the fact of the Luis Lopez deal with Officer Luis Lopez filing the disorderly conduct charge against me when I was having the anxiety attack, or autoimmune, or whatever you want to call it. Doctors are still trying to figure out what I got. So, the court clerk tells me that I can't file for having the judge to recuse himself because I'm not the victim in the case, or I'm not the accused. Well, I know better than that. Anyone can request a recusal of a judge. So, when this person told me that, I knew there was nowhere I was going in this courtroom. I went to the New Mexico Judicial Commission twice with complaints against this judge. That judge is no longer a judge. Why? I don't know. But it was very shortly after I filed those two complaints that this judge, magistrate judge, is no longer on the bench for whatever reason after 15 years. He says one thing, court says another, the commission says one, and I say another. You may get 4 different stories, but I got the evidence. It's on another video. So then Tina Garcia gets the case. In the meantime, I'm finally getting scheduled after 4 emergency room visits to the hospital. I got a schedule to get a foot of colon removed out of my gut on October 4th. It so happens to be the same date that this court date is for Michael Chavez. So, prior to my court date, I put together a package for this judge, Tina Garcia. Took it over to her office or courthouse in Los Lunas. And in there I stated about how I was going to be in surgery at the same exact day and time as this court date and like to have it rescheduled. Well, that didn't happen. It just so happened that Officer Robert Carrejo never showed up for court. So with that, you have Joshua, whatever his name is, the defense attorney. They're all knowing each other around here, so he asked for a dismissal. He got it. Because I wasn't there. I wasn't even subpoenaed to court, but I was in getting a foot of colon removed. This evidence has gone to the FBI. This evidence has gone to, in duplicate, as requested, to the Attorney General's Office of New Mexico. This information has gone to the Governor's Office, and no one has done a thing about it. The whole incident is also around the fact that not only the police here, but the incident with Michael Chavez, how he's involved is the fact that I do business audits in mystery shops. I've done business audits at the Family Tire Center called Cox Tire on Osuna in Albuquerque. First year, had no incident. Worked with Michael Chavez, no problem. I do not leave my personal information. The second year was June of 2012, prior to the October incident with the phone harassment. I was in there doing the audit, dealt with Michael Chavez again, no problem. The mother came around and was asking me some questions, and I answered them, no problem. She had some issues with the third-party company that I was contracted through about their issues, but it was nothing to do with me. I'm just reporting facts. We got in a little conversation about politics, about her going to some council meeting or something in another place close to here, and how she was saying the police were... God. The police, the citizens, and the city government were all against each other. And she was never going to another community meeting or council meeting again because of that. I just kind of laughed and said, yeah, I'm having little problems with where I live at. I even had to call the chief to get one of the cops out of my house. That cop wound up being her son. Shit hit the fan. I documented everything with my company. I documented everything and sent it over to the police chief here, and told him I did not trust Joseph Chavez. I did not want him over at my house anymore. I do not want him around here. He is a problem. He is a bad cop. Very bad cop. I started looking up his name on the internet and found out he's involved in a lot of complaints. In fact, one of the last suits filed against the city for harassment got his name all over it. There's been a number of other incidents with him involved with harassment. Look it up. You know, the case was dismissed against Michael Chavez. I feel as though there needs to be a federal investigation, not just on this incident, but on all of this. Joseph Chavez has escalated those police reports with false information, flat out lies in it. You've got cahoots with this Mario Vallejos, bail bondsman, which should be on the same level of trust and rapport as cops are with the citizens. But no, he decides he's above the law, just like these cops are as well. I have everything documented. Even though the case was dismissed in court in October, after I had my surgery in October 4th of 2013, at the end of that month, on Halloween morning, I had a heart attack. 100% blockage in one of my arteries. I didn't have heart problems prior. The stress that they've put me through is unbelievable. The life that I have been dealt in this town for 3.5, 4 years, unbelievable. The stress of my wife that they have put on us. I've talked to the U.S. Attorney's Office. They told me to file complaints with the FBI. The FBI has this information, this one particular information right here about this case. They don't have anything about the judge stuff, but that's easily found. I have the documents, I have the information, as well as you can go to the New Mexico Judicial Commission and get whatever they have. You can also go to the Attorney General's office and find out why they did not do anything. Or go to the mayor or the governor's office, Martinez. Go ask her why her office didn't do anything. I don't trust anyone in the state of New Mexico. The officials here are a joke. I'm asking for a federal investigation, a full federal investigation. Not just this incident, but on all of this mess. Right now, this incident, I need to direct my energy to filing a civil suit against the tire company, since they let the son the shop manager take fall for something I don't believe he did. And you pressure him with some real federal investigators questioning him, I'll bet you get the truth out of him. It was corruption at its finest. It's either the son, Joseph Chavez, Officer Joseph Chavez, the mother, and the brother set this whole thing up, with or without the state cop getting involved and knowing about the corruption there. But for the state cop making the investigation that did not properly do the investigation initially with closing the case and finding no wrongdoing, and then having to get it reopened by internal affairs, and this cop finds that the brother of the officer made the phone calls, but still did not get any subpoenaed records of anyone's phone calls. That's wrong. And then to not show up at court as a so-called prosecuting cop, that's a joke. Which the only one that gets screwed here is me, and I see a bunch of people getting away with a crime, or a couple of crimes, or combinations of crimes. Federal investigate and find out who did what, and then I want to know why. Why did this officer, which is in my opinion the one that made that call, why did he even make those phone calls? Well, it's one thing about falsifying police reports, it's another thing about phone harassing people, and especially when you're a cop.